The chains burned against his wrists as the guards dragged him forward. Commander Marcus Cole kept his eyes straight ahead, refusing to show weakness before the thousands of alien faces watching from the curved seats of the Galactic Senate. The citadel of stars stretched around him like a massive bowl carved from white stone and crystal. Light from 100 different suns poured through the glass ceiling, painting strange shadows across the floor. Marcus had been awake for 6 days. His clothes were torn. Blood had dried on his forehead from a wound that nobody had bothered to treat. But he walked with his back straight because that was all he had left. "The human prisoner will stand before the Arbiter," announced a voice that echoed through the chamber. Marcus stopped walking. He looked up at the elevated throne where Princess Alindra Vorthana sat watching him. She was silvery, one of the oldest species in the known galaxy. Her skin held a faint silver glow, and her eyes were the color of deep space, filled with distant stars. She wore robes of flowing blue that seemed to move like water even when she sat perfectly. Still, she was beautiful in the way that a glacier is. Beautiful, cold, ancient, untouchable. "Marcus Cole of Earth," she said. Her voice was calm and clear. "You stand accused of destroying the HFY warship Dominant Victory. 847 souls were lost in that destruction. The HFY Dominion demands your execution for this act of mass murder." The HFY ambassador rose from his seat. He was tall and thin, with gray skin stretched tight over sharp bones. His species looked like someone had taken a skeleton and wrapped it in leather. "This human attacked our ship without warning," the ambassador declared. "He rammed his vessel into our engines and caused a reactor explosion. This was not an accident. This was calculated slaughter." Murmurs spread through the Senate. Marcus could feel the hatred coming from the HFY section of the audience. He could also feel the fear from other species who watched him like he was a wild animal that might attack at any moment. Humans had only been part of galactic society for 50 years. In that time, the other species had studied them carefully. They had read about human wars. They had learned about human violence. They had created categories and classifications, and humans scored near the top of every danger index. Princess Alindra looked down at a data screen built into her throne. "The evidence appears clear. Security footage shows your cargo vessel deliberately colliding with the Dominant Victory. How do you answer these charges?" Marcus finally spoke. His voice was rough from days without water. "Play the full recording, not the version they edited." The HFY ambassador made a sharp hissing sound. "The human lies. There is no other recording, and you have nothing to fear from a full investigation," Marcus replied. Princess Alindra raised one delicate hand, and the chamber fell silent. "I will serve as arbiter of this trial. My species is known for our fairness and our neutrality. I will examine all evidence personally." Marcus looked directly into her eyes. In Sylvari culture, this was considered deeply disrespectful. You did not meet the gaze of royalty. But Marcus was human, and humans had different rules. The princess stared back at him. She expected to see anger, or fear, or perhaps the cold emptiness of a killer. Instead, she saw exhaustion. She saw grief. And she saw something else that she could not name, something that made her uncomfortable in ways she did not understand. "I will travel to the debris field myself," she announced. "I will examine every piece of evidence. And I will deliver a verdict based on truth, not politics." The HFY ambassador's face twisted with displeasure, but he said nothing. He could not openly oppose a Sylvari investigation without looking suspicious. As the guards began to drag Marcus away, Lindra watched him go. She had already made her judgment in her heart. She had spent years studying humans, reading every report about their violent nature. Their species lived such short lives that they seemed to have no respect for death. They fought wars over resources, over beliefs, over pride. They were predators who had somehow stumbled into civilization without ever truly becoming civilized. This human was simply proof of what she already knew. Humanity was a mistake that had slipped through evolution's cracks. After the Senate session ended, Lindra retired to her private chambers to prepare for the journey. Her aide, a young Sylvari named Velen, followed her with data tablets and travel documents. Your Highness, Velen said quietly, there is something you should know. Lendra paused. What is it? I accessed some classified records about the incident. Records that were not included in the official evidence package. Speak. Velen swallowed nervously. There was a third ship at the incident location. A passenger liner called the Harmony's Dream. It was carrying 12,000 civilians to the Korvathi colonies. Alindra felt something cold move through her chest. And where is this ship now? That is the problem, Your Highness. According to official records, the Harmony's Dream vanished on the same day as the attack. No trace was ever found. 12,000 civilians simply disappeared. Yes, Your Highness. But I found one more piece of information. Velan's hands trembled slightly as he handed her a data tablet. The Harmony's Dream sent a distress call before it vanished. The call was answered by only one ship in the area. Lendra looked at the screen. The name of the responding vessel glowed in simple text. The cargo hauler, owned by Marcus Cole. She read the final transmission from the Harmony's Dream. It was broken and filled with static. But the words were clear enough. We are under attack. Repeat, we are under attack. Zethvari vessel approaching. They are armed. Please help us. Please, anyone, help us. Alindra set the tablet down slowly. Her hands were steady, but her mind was racing. The Zethvari had claimed that Marcus Cole attacked them without provocation. But if there was a passenger liner sending distress calls, if the Zethvari warship was approaching that liner with weapons ready, then the story was very different. She walked to her window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere in that endless darkness, 12,000 souls had either died or disappeared, and the only person who knew the truth was sitting in a prison cell. Waiting to be executed? Prepare my ship, she told Velen. We leave within the hour, Your Highness. The Zethvari will not be pleased. Alindra turned to face him. For the first time in years, she felt something other than cold neutrality. She felt curiosity. She felt doubt. And underneath it all, she felt a strange and troubling emotion that she barely recognized. She felt the need to know the truth. The Zethvari can be as displeased as they wish, she said. I am the Arbiter, and I will have my answers. As her ship launched from the Citadel of Stars and jumped into hyperspace, Lindra sat alone in her quarters and stared at the image on her data tablet. It was a photograph of Marcus Cole, taken before his arrest. He was smiling, standing beside a cargo hauler painted with the words Second Sunrise. Behind him, a crew of 5 other humans waved at the camera, according to the records. All 5 of those crew members were now dead. Alindra wondered what had happened to that smile. She wondered what could turn a man from a simple cargo hauler into someone who would ram a warship. She wondered if she would find a monster at the end of her investigation, or something else entirely. The stars blurred around her ship as it raced toward the truth, and the truth, it would soon discover, was far more complicated than she had ever imagined. The debris field stretched across 1,000,000 kilometers of empty space. Twisted metal floated in the darkness like the bones of some great beast. Princess Alindra stood at the observation window of her ship and watched the wreckage drift past. Somewhere in that mess of destruction was the truth she had come to find. Your Highness, her science officer reported, we have finished scanning the larger fragments. We found something unusual. Lendra turned from the window. Show me. The officer activated a holographic display. A 3-dimensional map of the debris field appeared, with different sections highlighted in various colors. The Zethvari warship's weapon systems were fully charged at the moment of destruction. Every cannon, every missile tube, every energy projector was ready to fire. That proves they were defending themselves, Alindra said. That proves they were attacking. The officer zoomed in on a particular section of the display. A ship defending itself would have weapons in a reactive state. These weapons were in targeting mode. They had already locked onto something before the collision. Locked onto the human's cargo ship? No, the officer's face was troubled. The targeting data we recovered shows they were aimed at a different vessel entirely. A much larger vessel? Lindra felt a chill run through her body. The passenger liner. The Harmony's Dream. Yes, Your Highness. Based on the trajectory data, the HFY warship was approaching the liner with all weapons armed. The cargo ship intercepted them. For a long moment, Alendra said nothing. She had come here expecting to confirm the human's guilt. Instead, she was finding something much more disturbing. "Continue the investigation," she ordered. "I want every black box recovered, every piece of sensor data analyzed, and I want to speak with the prisoner." 2 days later, Alendra walked into the holding cell, where Marcus Cole waited. He sat on a metal bench, his hands still bound in. Energy shackles. Dark circles surrounded his eyes, and his skin had taken on the gray color of someone who had not slept in far too long. "Princess," he said. His voice was flat. "Did you find what you were looking for?" She sat down across from him, separated by a force field that hummed softly in the air between them. "I found questions. Many questions. Then let me give you answers." And he did. Marcus spoke for almost an hour. He told her about receiving the distress call from the Harmony's Dream while hauling grain through that sector of space. He told her about changing course to respond, even though his ship had no weapons and no armor. He told her about arriving to find the HFY warship already clamped onto the passenger liner, preparing to board.
"Do you know what the HFY do with captured civilians?"
Marcus asked. "They sell them. Men, women, children. They take them to markets outside Concordance space and sell them like cattle." 12,000 people were about to disappear into the slave trade. Alendra kept her face neutral. "Why did you not call for Concordance assistance?" Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. Help was 18 hours away. The HFY were breaching the hull in 18 minutes. "Would you have waited, Princess? Would your ancestors?" She had no answer for that. "My ship had no weapons," Marcus continued. "I was carrying grain, agricultural products. Nothing that could fight a warship." He leaned forward, and for a moment, Alendra saw fire in his exhausted eyes. "But I had engines. I had a reactor. And I had a choice. So you rammed them. I overloaded my reactor and aimed for their engine section. The explosion took out their propulsion and started a chain reaction in their power core." Looked down at his shackled hands. "I ejected in an escape pod at the last second. Rode the shockwave until the Harmony's Dream could pull me in." Alendra processed this information. "And then I spent 9 hours pulling survivors out of breached hull sections." "What do you mean?" Marcus met her eyes. "The collision caused damage to the passenger liner too. Multiple sections lost atmosphere. I put on a vacuum suit and went out there. Section by section, room by room. I pulled people out of the darkness and brought them back to the safe zones." "How many did you save?" 147. His voice cracked slightly. "Not enough." "How many died?" 203. He paused. "I remember every name. Families who were traveling together, children who got separated from their parents, an old couple who had been married for 60 years and died holding hands because I could not reach them in time." Alendra found herself unable to speak. In all her studies of humans, in all the reports and classifications and danger indices, no one had ever described anything like this. Violence, yes. Warfare, yes. But this kind of sacrifice? This willingness to destroy everything you have to save strangers? "Your crew," she said finally. "The 5 people in the photograph, what happened to them?" Marcus closed his eyes. "They stayed on the ship. They kept the engines running while I ejected. Someone had to guide the collision manually." He took a shaky breath. "They knew they would not survive. They did it anyway. Why?" Marcus opened his eyes and looked at her with an expression she could not read. "Because that is what humans do. We do not fight for victory. We do not fight for glory. We fight for the people behind us. My crew died so that 12,000 strangers could live." Alendra stood up abruptly. Her emotions were churning in ways she had not experienced in centuries. The Sylvari were a calm species. They had engineered passion out of themselves long ago. But something about this human, about his impossible choices and his quiet grief, was breaking through walls she did not know she had. I will review the evidence again, she said. I will speak with the survivors of the Harmony's dream. You do that, Marcus replied. And when you are done, Princess, ask yourself one question.
What question?
Ask yourself what you would have done. If you had been there, if you had seen those people about to be taken, if you had no weapons, no help, no time. He leaned back against the cold wall of his cell. Ask yourself if you would have had the courage to make the choice I made. Alindra left without answering. She walked through the corridors of her ship in silence, ignoring the greetings of her crew. When she reached her quarters, she locked the door and stood alone in the darkness. For 3,000 years, her people had classified other species based on their capacity for violence. Humans had scored among the highest, higher than the Zethvari, higher than almost anyone, but standing in that dark room, Alindra began to understand something the metrics had never captured. Humans did not just have a capacity for violence. They had a capacity for choosing when to use it. And more than that, they had a capacity for sacrifice that made no logical sense. Marcus Cole had destroyed his ship, lost his crew, and nearly died himself to save people he had never met. People who were not even his own species. What kind of creature did that? The answer came to her slowly, rising up from somewhere deep in her ancient mind. A hero, the word felt strange to her. The Sylvari did not believe in heroes. They believed in logic, in order, in careful calculation of costs and benefits. But humans believed in something else. They believed in impossible choices. They believed in sacrifice. They believed in doing what was right, even when it meant losing everything. Alindra sat down at her desk and began reviewing the survivor testimonies from the Harmony's dream. By the time she finished, several hours later, tears were streaming down her silver cheeks. She had been wrong about humans. She had been wrong about everything, and now she had to decide what to do about it. The survivor testimonies filled her screen like an ocean of pain and gratitude. Princess Alindra had requested access to every recording from the Harmony's dream incident, and now she sat in her quarters watching them one by one, unable to look away. A Corvathi mother appeared on screen. Her species had fur like golden wheat and large, gentle eyes. She held her 3 children close as she spoke. The whole breach happened so fast. One moment we were in our cabin. The next moment, the wall was gone, and we were being pulled into space. My children were screaming. I could not hold on to all of them. The mother paused to wipe tears from her face. Then he came. The human? He came through the breach in a suit that was patched together with tape and prayer. He grabbed my youngest first, then the middle one. He told my oldest to hold on to his back. And then he carried us, all of us, through the vacuum to the safe zone. She looked directly into the camera. His suit was leaking. I could see the frost forming on his skin. But he did not stop. He did not slow down. He saved my children, and then he went back out to save more. Alindra paused the recording. Her hands were trembling. The next testimony came from a Sylvari elder, one of her own people. He was ancient even by Sylvari standards. His silver glow faded to a soft gray. I have lived for 4,000 years, he said. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched species evolve and species die. In all that time, I thought I understood courage. I thought I understood sacrifice. He shook his head slowly. I understood nothing. Not until I watched that human work for 9 hours, without rest, without food, without hope. Section after section. Body after body. Sometimes he found the living. Sometimes he found only the dead. But he never stopped searching. The elder leaned forward. At one point, his oxygen ran out. He should have returned to the safe zone. Instead, he held his breath, pulled 3 more people from a destroyed cabin, and dragged them to safety before he finally collapsed. The doctor said he was dead for almost 2 minutes before they revived him. And do you know what he did when he woke up? Alindra shook her head, even though the elder could not see her. He asked how many were still trapped. He tried to go back out. They had to physically restrain him. The elder's voice broke. That is not the behavior of a killer. That is the behavior of someone who values other lives more than his own. The next recording was the one that finally shattered Alindra's composure. A young Zethvari woman appeared on screen. She was thin and pale, with the same gray skin and sharp bones as the ambassador, but her eyes held none of his cruelty. "My name is Vetha," she said. "I was a passenger on the Harmony's Dream. I was fleeing my own people. I was trying to escape the Dominion because I could not stand what they do." Vetha's hands twisted nervously in her lap. "When the attack happened, I thought I was going to die. Or worse, I thought my own people would capture me and punish me for trying to leave. But then the human came." She took a deep breath. "He found me hiding in a storage compartment. When he saw my species, he should have hated me. My people had just tried to enslave everyone on that ship. My people had killed his friends. But do you know what he did?" Alindra waited. "He apologized to me." Vetha's voice was filled with wonder. "He apologized for killing my countrymen. He said he was sorry that it had to happen. He said he hoped I understood that he had no choice." She wiped her eyes. "I told him I understood. I told him they were not my countrymen anymore. And he hugged me. This human, covered in blood and frost, held me while I cried for people I had already stopped loving." Alindra closed her eyes. She could not watch anymore. She could not process what she was learning. For 3,000 years, her people had built their civilization on the idea of neutrality. They did not take sides. They did not make judgments. They observed and recorded and classified, but they never acted. They had engineered themselves into perfect witnesses who watched the galaxy suffering without ever trying to stop it. And they had called this wisdom. A chime at her door pulled her from her thoughts. She composed herself and called for the visitor to enter. The Zethvari ambassador walked into her chambers. His smile was the smile of a predator who knew he had cornered his prey. "Princess Alindra," he said smoothly. "I hope I am not disturbing you. What do you want?" The ambassador moved closer, his movements careful and controlled. "I want to offer you an opportunity. A chance to finally access the information your people have sought for centuries." Alindra narrowed her eyes. "Explain." "The Zethvari archives contain records from the early ages of the galaxy, including records of the Silveray's own history. Records of wars your people fought before you chose to forget them." He paused for effect. "Wars you erased from your own memory." Alindra felt a cold shock run through her. It was true that the Silvari had deleted parts of their history. They had decided long ago that remembering their violent past served no purpose. But the desire to know had never completely disappeared. "What is your price?" she asked. "Simple. Declare the human guilty. Let him be executed. Maintain the balance of power in the galaxy." The ambassador's smile widened. "One human life is a small price for the secrets of your own past." Alindra stood very still. Part of her wanted to accept. Part of her wanted to know what her people had been before they chose to forget. But a larger part of her was remembering the testimonies she had just watched. The mother with her children, the ancient elder, the young Zethvari woman who had fled her own species. "No," she said. The ambassador's smile disappeared. "Think carefully, princess. This offer will not be repeated." I said no. "Very well." His voice turned cold. "Then you should know that we have other ways to ensure the outcome we desire." Right. He pulled out a small communication device and activated it. A holographic display appeared, showing a ship traveling through space. "This is the Horizon's Hope, sister ship to the Harmonies. Dream. It is currently carrying 12,000 refugees to a safe port in the Korvathi system." Alindra felt ice form in her stomach. "We have agents aboard," the ambassador continued. "If you do not cooperate, those 12,000 souls will vanish. Just like we intended for the passengers of the Harmony's Dream, they will disappear into our markets, and no one will ever find them. You would murder 12,000 innocent people to punish me." The ambassador laughed softly. "Murder? No. Business. These refugees have value. But we are willing to sacrifice that profit to send a message." He moved toward the door. "You have 4 hours to announce your verdict. Find the human guilty, or the Horizon's Hope will never reach its destination." He left without another word. Alindra stood alone in her quarters, her mind racing. She could not expose the Zethvari without evidence. She could not mobilize Concordance forces in time. She could not trust her own security staff because the Zethvari had spies everywhere. For hours. 12,000 lives. She thought about Marcus Cole sitting in his cell. She thought about his impossible choices. She thought about what he had said to her. Ask yourself what you would have done. Alindra left her quarters and walked through the corridors of her ship. She walked past guards and officers and servants, and none of them tried to stop her. She walked all the way to the detention level, through 3 security checkpoints, until she stood in front of Marcus's cell. He looked up at her with tired eyes. Princess, you look like someone who just learned the world is not what she thought it was. Zethvari are going to attack another ship. 12,000 refugees. They are using them as leverage to force my verdict. Marcus sat up slowly. How much time do we have? Less than 4 hours? It's not enough time for Concordance reinforcements? No. Not enough time for political solutions? No. Marcus studied her face. Why are you telling me this? Alindra did something she had never done before. Something that would have shocked every Sylvari who had ever lived. She knelt before the prisoner, her silver robes pooling on the cold floor. Because I need your help, she said. Because you have stopped the Zethvari before. And because I need to understand how humans do the impossible. Marcus looked at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he began to smile. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had been waiting for this moment without knowing it. Get me out of these chains, he said, and I will show you exactly how we do it. The maintenance shuttle was small, cramped, and completely unsuitable for what they were about to attempt. Marcus Cole stood at the controls, running his hands over systems that had never been designed for combat or speed. Behind him, Princess Alindra watched with a mixture of fear and fascination. Vessel has no weapons, she said. Noticed, it has minimal shields. Also noticed. Maximum speed is half of what a Zethvari attack ship can achieve. Marcus turned to look at her. Despite everything, there was a spark of something in his eyes that had not been there before. Princess, do you know what the difference is between a human and every other species in this galaxy? Enlighten me. Everyone else looks at a problem and calculates the odds. They measure resources, evaluate risks, and make logical decisions based on probable outcomes. He turned back to the controls and began entering coordinates. Humans look at a problem and ask a different question. We ask, what do I need to make this work? And what do you need to make this work? Time, luck, and you. The shuttle launched from the investigation vessel and jumped into hyperspace before anyone could stop them. Alindra felt the strange sensation of faster-than-light travel pressing against her consciousness. The Sylvari had built the first hyperdrives thousands of years ago, but she had never gotten used to the feeling of being stretched across the stars. 3 hours until we reach the horizon's hope, Marcus announced. The Zethvari ships are already in the area. 3 attack vessels, based on the intelligence you gathered. How can we possibly defeat 3 warships with a maintenance shuttle? Marcus pulled a toolkit from beneath the console and began opening panels. We are not going to defeat them. We are going to outthink them. For the next hour, Alindra watched Marcus work. He pulled components from different systems and combined them in ways that should not have been possible. He rerouted power from life support to engines. He modified the communication array into something that looked almost like a weapon. He built devices she did not recognize from parts that were never meant to work together. Where did you learn to do this? She asked. Earth. Growing up poor in a colony town. When you cannot afford to replace things, you learn to fix them. When you cannot afford weapons, you learn to make them from whatever you have. Humans are ... resourceful. Humans are desperate. He wiped sweat from his forehead. Desperation is a powerful teacher. During a brief rest period, they talked. Alindra found herself sharing things she had never told anyone. She told him about the Sylvari's forgotten wars, about the violence her people had deleted from their own minds. She told him about the emptiness of spending 3,000 years watching the galaxy suffer without ever trying to help. You envy us, Marcus said. It was not a question. I envy your courage, she admitted. Your willingness to face violence instead of erasing it from memory. Your ability to make impossible choices and live with the consequences. Living with consequences is the hard part. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Every person I could not save is a weight I carry. Every face, every name, every story that ended because I was not fast enough, not strong enough, not good enough. He pulled out a small pendant and opened it, showing her holographic images. A young girl with his eyes, a woman with a gentle smile, 5 people in work clothes standing in front of a ship. My daughter, he said, pointing to the girl. My wife who passed 3 years ago. And my crew, the people who stayed behind so that I could survive. Why do you keep fighting? After all, you have lost. Marcus closed the pendant. Because that is what they would want. Because every life I save is a way of honoring the lives I could not. He met her eyes. Humans do not fight for victory, princess. We fight for who is behind us. My crew died so that strangers could live. The least I can do is make their sacrifice mean something. Alindra felt something shift inside her. For 3,000 years, she had been a perfect observer. Neutral, detached, uninvolved, but something about this human, about his grief and his determination and his impossible hope, was changing her in ways she did not fully understand. The shuttle dropped out of hyperspace, and Alindra saw the horizon's hope for the first time. It was a beautiful ship, white and silver, designed to carry refugees to new lives. And surrounding it like predators circling wounded prey were 3 Zethvari attack vessels. Here we go, Marcus said. He activated the communication system and broadcast on all frequencies. Attention, Zethvari vessels. This is Commander Marcus Cole. I am the one who destroyed the dominant victory. I am the ghost freighter. And I am giving you one chance to leave before I do to you what I did to your friends. Silence on the channel. Then, laughter. The human is insane, a Zethvari voice responded. You are in a maintenance shuttle. You have no weapons. No armor, no chance. We will destroy you and then take the refugees as planned. Your funeral, Marcus replied. He cut the channel and turned to Alindra. 2 of them are coming for us. The 3rd is staying with the liner. I need you to dock with the Horizon's Hope and get them moving while I keep the others busy. How will you keep 2 warships busy? Marcus smiled. It was a wild, reckless, absolutely human smile. Watch and learn, princess. He threw the shuttle into a series of maneuvers that should have been impossible for a vessel that size. The Zethvari ships followed, their weapons firing bursts of energy that missed by meters then centimeters. Marcus flew between asteroid fragments, around debris fields, through spaces so narrow that Alindra closed her eyes and prayed to gods she had not believed in for centuries. Now Marcus said he ejected her in an escape pod aimed directly at the Horizon's Hope. Alindra tumbled through space. Watching the shuttle continue its insane dance with death, she docked with the refugee liner and immediately ran to the bridge. The captain was a Korvathi female who looked at her with suspicion and fear. I am Princess Alindra Vorthana of the Silvari, she announced. I am here to help you escape. Why should I trust you? Your people have never interfered in Zethvari business before. Alindra felt something break inside her. All the neutrality, all the careful distance, all the thousands of years of watching without acting. It was gone. In its place was something new, something that felt like fire. Because I am done watching, she said. Because there are 12,000 souls on this ship who deserve better than being sold into slavery. Because a human taught me that neutrality is just another word for cowardice. She grabbed the captain's arm. Now move this ship before the Zethvari kill us all. The captain stared at her for a long moment. Then she turned to her crew. All engines full. Get us out of here. The Horizon's Hope began to move. On the sensors, Alindra watched Marcus's shuttle weaving between the 2 pursuing ships, somehow still surviving, somehow still flying. Then she saw the 3rd Zethvari vessel break off from its position and moved to intercept the liner. "We are not going to make it," the captain said. On the screen, Marcus's shuttle suddenly changed course. It was no longer running. It was accelerating directly toward the intercepting Zethvari ship. "No," Alindra whispered. "Marcus, no." The shuttle slammed into the Zethvari vessel's bridge at full speed. The explosion was brilliant and brief. A flower of fire blooming in the darkness of space. Alindra screamed. But then she saw something else. A small object, tumbling away from the explosion. An escape pod. Moving toward the crippled Zethvari ship, Marcus Cole, in nothing but a vacuum suit, crashed through the shattered viewport of the enemy bridge. And then, according to the sensor readings that Alindra would later struggle to believe, he proceeded to disable the entire vessel from the inside. The remaining 2 Zethvari ships, seeing their flagship destroyed and their interceptor crippled, broke off their pursuit and fled into hyperspace. The Horizon's hope was safe, but when Concordance rescue ships finally arrived, they found Marcus Cole unconscious in the wreckage of the Zethvari bridge. His suit was failing. His body was riddled with radiation damage. His vital signs were barely readable. Alindra held his hand as the medical teams worked desperately to save him. "Stay with me," she whispered. "Stay with me, you impossible human. You have not finished teaching me yet." His eyes fluttered open for just a moment. "Did we... save them?" "Yes. All 12,000. He smiled faintly. "Good. That is... good." Then his eyes closed. The monitors began to scream warnings that Alindra did not understand. She made a decision in that moment. A decision that would change everything. She opened a channel to her homeworld and spoke words that no Sylvari had ever spoken before. "Isis Alindra Vorthana, I am invoking the Ancient Covenant. I am requesting access to the Chambers of Renewal for a non-Sylvari patient." She paused. "He saved 12,000 lives. Now, I am asking you to save his." The silence that followed lasted for an eternity. Then, finally, a response came. "Bring him home, daughter. We will do what we can." As the rescue ship jumped to hyperspace, carrying Marcus Cole toward the hidden Sylvari homeworld, Alindra sat beside him and refused to let go of his hand. She had broken every rule her people held sacred. She had committed treason against 3,000. Years of tradition, and she would do it all again, without hesitation. Because that was what humans did. They taught you that some things were worth more than rules. Some things were worth more than safety. Some things were worth risking everything for Marcus. Cole had taught her how to be brave. Now, she would teach her people the same lesson. Marcus Cole woke in a room made of living light. The walls glowed with a soft silver radiance that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. Strange flowers grew from surfaces that should not have supported life, their petals made of crystal and shadow. He was lying on a bed that felt like water and cloud combined, supporting his body in ways that defied understanding. "You're awake." He turned his head and saw Princess Alindra sitting beside him. She looked different somehow. Lighter, less burdened. The cold neutrality that had defined her face when they first met was gone, replaced by something warmer. "Where am I?" he asked. "The Sylvari homeworld. A place no outsider has seen in 3,000 years." She smiled gently. "I committed treason to bring you here. My people's most advanced healing technology was never meant to be shared with other species." Marcus tried to sit up, but his body felt strange. New. "How long have I been unconscious?" 12 days. The damage was extensive. Radiation poisoning, vacuum exposure, internal injuries from your rather dramatic entrance into the Zethvari bridge. She paused. "The healers say you should have died. Multiple times. They are still trying to understand how you survived long enough to reach us. Stubbornness, mostly." Marcus looked down at his hands. They were the same hands he had always known, but they felt stronger somehow. More complete. "The Sylvari healing technology does more than repair damage," Alindra explained. "It restores the body to its optimal state. You will find that many of the aches and pains you accumulated over years of hard living are now gone. I feel... strange. You feel healthy?" probably for the first time in years. A chime sounded, and a silvery healer entered the room. She was ancient and beautiful, her silver skin marked with patterns that looked like constellations. "The patient must rest," she said. "But first, he should know what awaits him." "What do you mean?" Marcus asked. The healer looked at Alindra. "Tell him, child. Tell him what his actions have caused." Alindra took a deep breath. "The Zethvari Dominion has formally declared war on the Sylvari for harboring you. The Galactic Concordance is in chaos. Half the member species want you executed as a criminal. The other half are calling you a hero who exposed the Zethvari slave trade." Marcus felt the weight of it settling onto his shoulders. "And you? What happens to you?" "I have been stripped of my title. I am no longer a princess. The eternal court of my ancestors has scheduled me for memory erasure as punishment for my treason." Her voice remained steady, but Marcus could see the fear hiding behind her eyes. Memory erasure was the cruelest punishment the Sylvari could inflict. It did not kill the body. It simply erased everything that made you who you were. "That is not going to happen," Marcus said firmly. "You cannot stop it. No one can stop it. Watch me." Before anyone could respond, another chime sounded. This time, the healer's face showed surprise. "There are ... ships. Many ships. Arriving at our borders." Alindra stood quickly. "Zethvari. No." The healer stared at her data screen with an expression of wonder. "Human." Marcus pushed himself out of the healing bed, ignoring the protests from both women. He walked to a window that looked out over the Sylvari homeworld, a planet of crystal forests and silver oceans that no human had ever seen. And there, in the sky above, he saw them. Ships. Hundreds of ships. Thousands of ships. Not warships, freighters, passenger liners. Medical vessels. Research stations. A fleet of ordinary vessels carrying ordinary people. Humans. Millions of humans. Coming to stand witness. "I do not understand," Alindra said, moving to stand beside him. A communication signal came through. A woman's voice filled the room. "This is the refugee convoy, representing the survivors. Of the Harmony's Dream? We have come to testify on behalf of Commander Marcus Cole. We have brought documentation of everything the Zethvari tried to hide." Another signal. "This is the Cole family memorial fleet. We are the relatives of the crew members who sacrificed themselves to save 12,000 lives. We demand that their heroism be recognized." Another. "This is the first human volunteer corps. We heard what Commander Cole did. We heard what Princess Alindra did. We came because that is what humans do. We stand with those who stand for others." The signals kept coming. Ship after ship. Voice after voice. Humans from every colony, every station, every corner of human space. They had crossed the galaxy not to fight, but to speak, to testify, to stand together. Alindra felt tears running down her cheeks. "They came. They all came. That is what we do," Marcus said quietly. "When one of us fights for what is right, the rest of us show up. We do not leave our people behind. We do not leave anyone behind." 2 weeks later, Marcus Cole stood before the Galactic Senate for the second time, but this time he was not in chains. This time he stood tall and strong, wearing the simple clothes of a cargo hauler, surrounded by a sea of human faces that filled every available seat in the great chamber. Princess Alindra stood beside him. She was no longer royalty, but something had changed in her people. The humans' response had shaken the Sylvari to their core. For the first time in 3,000 years, they were questioning their neutrality. They were questioning their isolation. They were seeing what it meant to stand for something. The trial took 3 days. Survivors testified. Evidence was presented. The full, unedited recordings from the Harmony's Dream incident were played for the entire galaxy to see. At the end, Marcus addressed the Senate directly. Killed 847 Zethvari to save 12,000 innocents. It destroyed a warship that was about to enslave families and children. Lost my crew, my ship, and nearly my life. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of species that had spent decades fearing and misjudging humanity. I am not asking for forgiveness. I am not asking for understanding. I am simply asking you to answer one question. He paused. If protecting the helpless makes me a killer, then what does standing aside and letting them die make you? The silence that followed was absolute. The Senate voted that evening. Marcus Cole was acquitted of all charges. More than that, he was formally recognized as a hero of the Concordance, the first human to ever receive that honor. The Zethvari ambassador stormed out of the chamber, but his own people were already in revolt. Marcus's actions had exposed their slave trade to galactic scrutiny. Within months, the Dominion would face internal rebellion and external sanctions that would cripple their power for generations. As for the Sylvari, they reversed Alindra's punishment. But they went further than that. Moved by her sacrifice and by the human response, the Eternal Court announced a historic change. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Sylvari would engage with the galaxy not as neutral observers, but as active participants. They would share their knowledge. They would form alliances. They would stand with those who stood for justice. And it all began because one human had refused to look away. 3 months later, Marcus Cole prepared to leave the Sylvari homeworld. His new ship, the Second Chance, waited in orbit. It was a gift from the grateful survivors of both rescue missions. Funded by donations from across human space, Alindra met him at the docking bay. She wore traveling clothes instead of royal robes, and she carried a small bag over her shoulder. "Where will you go?" she asked. "Wherever I am needed." "The galaxy is big. There are always people who need help." He studied her face. "What about you? You are no longer a princess. You could do anything." "I know." She smiled, and there was nothing cold about it anymore. "I was hoping you might have room for a passenger." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "You want to come with me? You taught me what it means to act instead of watch. You taught me what it means to sacrifice for others. You taught me what courage looks like." She met his eyes without hesitation. "I want to learn more." Marcus thought about his crew, about the 5 people who had stayed behind so that he could live. He thought about his wife who had believed in him when no one else did. About his daughter waiting for him back on Earth. Growing up in a galaxy that was just a little bit safer because of what they had done. He held out his hand. "Welcome aboard." Lindra took it. Together they walked onto the Second Chance. Together they launched into the stars. And together they jumped to hyperspace, heading toward whatever crisis awaited them next. Because that was what humans did. They did not wait for problems to solve themselves. They did not calculate odds or measure risks or make logical decisions based on probable outcomes. They saw people in trouble, and they helped. And now, thanks to one impossible human and one transformed princess, the galaxy was learning to do the same. The final transmission arrived just as they entered hyperspace. A distress call from the Korvathi border. A colony under attack. Children in danger. No help available for hours. Marcus looked at Alindra. She looked back at him. They both smiled. The Second Chance changed course and accelerated toward the fire.